A very good afternoon and welcome to the glorious Phillip Island. I do promise you that about 10 minutes ago the sun was shining here, but as is typical around these parts at this time of the year, the winds, the rain has arrived, and myself, Jack Appleyard and Lewis Suddaby are going to try tackle it for the next half an hour. Our biggest challenge coming up is to try and hold on to these umbrellas with the wind as it is, but I guess, Lewis, it wouldn't be Phillip Island without us having to tackle some conditions like this.
This is Phillip Island in a nutshell. When we woke up this morning, bright sunshine, it was as warm as 23, 24 degrees earlier on today. It has turned nasty in around about the last hour, and we're expecting 4 seasons in a day throughout the Grand Prix weekend. We're expecting sunshine, we're expecting hot and cold temperatures, we're expecting strong winds as well, which is not an uncommon sight here in Phillip Island as well. And we're setting the tone nice and early.
Absolutely. Starters we mean to go on, and it's a weekend that you would say up and down the MotoGP grid, suddenly there's an opportunity presented to pretty much everybody, with the news since we were last reviewing Mandalika at the Indonesian Grand Prix that the new world champion Marc Marquez won't be with us this weekend nor next time out in Malaysia outside of the Ducati box, because Marc has gone under the knife, has undergone surgery after that collision and that big impact on that right shoulder and collarbone with Marco Bezzecchi. Just update us, Lewis, what is the latest with the number 93?
Yeah, so when we last heard from Marc Marquez on the Sunday, he said there were signs of a possible break. That was confirmed. He has got a fracture to his right shoulder blade. There is also some ligament damage to that right shoulder. What they wanted to do initially was just give it time with some immobilization, lack of activity, just to let it stabilize. There were no signs of that over the course of around about a week. So on Monday, the beginning of this week, they finally made the decision. Marc Marquez went under the surgeon's knife. So at this stage, of course, we're not going to see him officially from Ducati. Not going to see him here this weekend or next weekend at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. You have to cast some serious doubt as to whether they're going to see Marc Marquez at all for the rest of 2025 now.
Yeah, that is the big question. I think Marc will be desperately hoping to be able to get to Valencia, more importantly to the Tuesday after the final round of the year, to be able to test Ducati's 2026 package, because that day is oh so important to really building the foundations of the bike for the rest of the year. But as you say, with the injury as it is, I think it's a huge question mark of whether we'll see him for the rest of it. And I think a lot of it down to the advice that Marc himself has been given to plenty of riders. Jorge Martin in particular at the start of the year, he told him to listen to his body, to take his time. Marc has made that mistake before, so I think we can be guaranteed he won't be rushing back.
No, he won't be rushing back. Championship already won, of course. He clinched that back in Japan, so there is no results incentive for Marc Marquez to get back and race again. Of course, he did. He wanted to really enjoy these final rounds of the season post winning the World Championship and stay clear of injuries. Sadly, he has done neither of those. Taken out by Marco Bezzecchi on the very first lap of that race. And of course, we have had updates on Bezzecchi's progress for this weekend since then too.
Yeah, we have indeed. A hearing was held with Simon Crafar, Chief FIM Steward, not in Indonesia because Marco went off to hospital, but this morning at around 10 a.m. and a double long lap penalty will be going the way of the Aprilia rider in Sunday's Grand Prix. So you do feel Saturday a huge day for him now to try and take as many points as he can, because a double long lap penalty, we saw just what one long lap penalty did to Alex Marquez's Grand Prix in Austria early in the year when he was unable to come through when he really had the pace of challenge for the podium. A double long lap almost guarantees that Marco doesn't have a chance really of winning Sunday's Grand Prix unless we get freak conditions like this, and then anything can happen.
Yeah, it feels like the most open MotoGP weekend for quite some time, for several years really. The world champion is out injured. The rider who many would have put as the likely favourite without Marc Marquez this weekend, Marco Bezzecchi, has got the handicap of 2 long lap penalties. Pecoo Bagnaia, who we'll hear from later, surrounded by question marks of what happened to him in Indonesia. So there'll be riders, I think, from all 5 manufacturers looking at this weekend thinking, with so many of the big hitters either out or potentially sidetracked or handicapped through penalties, this could be my big opportunity.
It is. It's completely wide open this weekend, and Phillip Island, a venue that normally provides incredible racing and some big surprises. So he's one to definitely tune into this weekend. We mentioned Marc Marquez's absence. Of course, we should note the fact that Jorge Martin, the former world champion now, is still recovering after that incident in Japan. And Maverick Vinales, you might have been with us in Indonesia. He decided to withdraw halfway through that Grand Prix. He's not with us this weekend, and it looks as though his participation in the remainder of the season looks in huge doubt as well. We know right now that Pol Espargaro will be stepping in this weekend and in Malaysia next time out, but just like Marc Marquez, I think we'll all be surprised if we see Maverick Vinales appearing before that test on Tuesday after the final round of the year.
And Maverick Vinales' injury issues, I guess, do kind of shine a light on what Marc Marquez is having to deal with in the remainder of this season. Maverick Vinales, of course, remember, he injured his shoulder all the way back in July, so we're talking 3 months ago now, and he's still nowhere near peak physical condition. So return to the Marc Marquez debate, I guess it sheds a question mark, not only whether Marc Marquez is going to race again this season, but just whether he can get himself fully fit for the start of pre-season testing next season. If we see Marc Marquez even in Valencia, there's no way he's going to be 100% fit. And clearly for Maverick Vinales, the same. Jorge Martin, of those three, you expect to see him back the soonest. Yeah,
fingers crossed we can get the number one plate out there as soon as possible. You might have just seen in the back of shots the newest addition to the MotoGP grid. Officially, the worst kept secret in the paddock is now confirmed. Diogo Moreira moving up to MotoGP next year with the LCR Honda squad. We'll be speaking to him live in just a few moments' time. Before that, though, we caught up with Marco Bezzecchi earlier today to get his reaction to that double long lap penalty and what it means for his weekend here in Australia.
Yeah, nothing in particular. I mean, I didn't expect to be so much faster in that point. Unfortunately, I make a valuation mistake, and I tried to avoid the contact as much as I could, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it, and I just touched a little bit the rear end of the bike from Marc. Of course, the consequence was huge because in that point there was such a big gap from the asphalt to the gravel, and unfortunately from a slide, then Marc hit the gravel and he got injured, and I also wasn't gonna crash, but with the gravel then I also crashed and I hurt myself. So yeah, I'm just sorry for this. Of course, I didn't want to crash on anybody, and also I didn't want to ruin the race for me and for anyone else. So, but this is racing and this can happen.
Does the penalty change anything about how you approach this weekend on the island? Maybe an extra emphasis on qualifying or the opening laps?
No, I mean, at the end is a race direction decision, and I respect it and I accept it. At the end, is like this. But my mentality doesn't change. I will try to give my all to make the best out of the weekend, trying to make a good job since from tomorrow, and try to do a good performance overall all the days.
Marco Bezzecchi there ahead of his weekend here at the Australian Grand Prix. Of course, third place in the World Championship, still up for grabs between him and Pecoo Bagnaia. Alex Marquez can confirm that runner-up spot to make it a Marquez 1-2. But let's look forward to 2026, and we finally, at last, have a completed grid. The newest member of the MotoGP grid, Diogo Moreira, joins us now. Firstly, congrats, Diogo. We just called it the worst kept secret in the paddock. We've known for some time that you were going to be moving up to MotoGP, but now that everything is confirmed, just how excited are you to make that huge step next year?
Yeah, for sure. Right now I'm really happy. I think we are in a good moment, and also in my life, you know. I think it's important to have this opportunity for MotoGP, and I am really grateful for this. And yeah, I mean, it will be nice for sure, and let's see.
And moving up with Honda right now are in a great moment. Ever since the summer break, we've seen huge progress, a great step up in results as well. So it seems like the perfect time to be joining them.
Yeah, for sure. I have 3 years, so I need to be. We need to be calm. You know, we need to understand the bike. Also, the category is another world. You know, so we need to be focused on that point. And yeah, right now Honda is in a good moment. I think they will improve for sure, and let's see next year.
Talk to us about your progress over the last couple of years in Moto2. You've come a long way in a very short space of time. How proud are you of that, and how excited are you to be moving up to MotoGP just in time for the return of the Brazilian Grand Prix?
Yeah, for sure. Right now, I think this year is my best year of my life. So I'm enjoying a lot this year. I also learning a lot. So it's important for sure to be ready for next year. And yeah, it will be for sure crazy weekend in Brazil in the second race of the season. So yeah, let's see. It will be all my family, all my friends. So yeah, it will be nice.
I'd say your victory in Indonesia was super impressive, so consistent. Manu was putting the pressure on throughout the race, but you kept the pressure on. And of course, with what happened to Manu after the race, the gap is now 9 points. You've got a World Championship to win yet in Moto2. Tell us your thoughts of the final 4 Grand Prix of the season and the opportunity that's ahead of you now.
Yeah, it was nice. All the weekend was nice. I was enjoying and also working a lot. And on the race was nice to be Manu on the rear, putting pressure in myself. So yeah, it was nice, and we need to be on this line now. Try to stay calm and enjoying the 4 races to go.
One of the big questions, Diogo, is what number you're going to use, because of course Luca Marini has number 10 at the moment. So have you got any ideas?
Yeah, I know already my number for next year, but I need to be in secret.
Okay.
I will put after Valencia race, when we make the test on Tuesday, I will put on the bike.
Any links to some former Brazilian greats? Because I know the number 10 at the moment was linked with Pele, right?
Yeah. Will be a Brazilian number.
Okay.
So that's the key.
Okay, so we've got a clue. I look forward. I'm sure everyone on social media will be guessing now as to what it's going to be. That Tuesday in Valencia, the debut, how excited are you to jump onto the MotoGP bike for the first time? Have you already got some thoughts of what that's going to be like?
Yeah, I think it will be amazing. You know, at the end, all the rookies, when they try the MotoGP, they put a different face. You know, it will be for sure for me. And yeah, I'm excited to try the MotoGP. But yeah, right now I need to be focused on this year and try to enjoy these 4 races.
Just finally, as you say, a 3-year deal, that's a huge contract, a big statement of confidence in you by Honda. How much does that mean that you have got that time to be able to learn the class, to be able to adapt and hopefully improve?
Yeah, it will be, for sure, will be more easy to stay calm, you know, and focus. And try to understand the bike. At the end is different. Also, we need to understand the team. And yeah, I think with 3 years it's more easy to be calm and try to enjoy the MotoGP bike.
Well, Diogo, congratulations again and good luck for the rest of the year. Hopefully there's a World Championship at the end of it for you.
I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. Great to chat with Diogo Moreira. We'll allow you to go and get away from the wind and the rain now. We can get dry ahead of the weekend. A huge talent, someone that the top stars in MotoGP have spoken about for some time. Marc Marquez in particular, when they trained together on dirt track. Ever since he moved up to Moto3, said this kid has got a special talent, and Honda giving him a 3-year deal. That's a huge, as we said, a huge statement from them to show how much trust they've got in him already.
Yeah, they clearly see Diogo Moreira in, I guess, in many respects, the same way that Ducati saw Fermin Aldeguer when they signed him, taking a real punt, if you really think it's a punt. I think we all know how good Diogo Moreira is, but to give him such a length of contract clearly indicates that they expect Diogo Moreira to be a MotoGP rider for many, many years. As I said to him there, I thought his victory in Indonesia last time out was so impressive. Remember, this is a rider in just his 2nd season in Moto2, Rookie of the Year last year in Moto2. And when the Czech Grand Prix finished earlier in the season, he was 60 points behind Manu Gonzalez in the race for the Moto2 Championship. He's now got that down to 9 points with just 4 races to go. So there is every chance yet that Diogo Moreira could move up next season as the Moto2 World Champion. We've already seen rides from the season where he's won Grand Prix by leading from the front. He's such a tenacious battler on track. So entertaining to watch him battle wheel to wheel with other riders, because he never knows when he's beaten. And yes, we saw the best and the worst of him back at the Sachsenring when he had that moment off track, got in the way of David Alonso and picked up a pit lane start. But just watch his ride at the Sachsenring. Up until that, it was one of the great Moto2 rides, and it was stuff like that that convinced Honda to sign him. Yeah,
I think what you say there is the most impressive thing, in that he's won races this year in every way possible. He's done it from lights to flag by just having electric rhythm and pace that nobody could live with. Or if it comes down to a dogfight, he's more than happy to get his gloves off and get down and dirty with the best of them. And
very few were talking about him as a title contender before the season started.
And he's right there in the mix now with 4 rounds to go. It's going to be a fascinating end to that Moto2 campaign, and it's going to be a fascinating Rookie of the Year fight next year. Moreira versus Razgatlioglu. Let's see who comes out on top in that one. Right, let's switch our attention back to this weekend here in Australia. And of course, no Marc Marquez, but Pecoo Bagnaia still flying the flag for Ducati after, can we call it rock bottom at Mandalika?
It wasn't far off.
We keep thinking that this situation with Bagnaia can't get any worse, and then it gets a lot better, and then it suddenly drops to lows that none of us expected. I mean, in the space of 7 days, how on earth do you go from dominating the Japanese Grand Prix, leading every lap and making everybody else look like they were in a different race, to suddenly crashing out of last place, 3 seconds behind the next man in front of him, Somkhiat Chantra? It's one of the most dramatic falls from graces in such a short space of time I think we've ever seen in MotoGP. And the worst thing for Bagnaia, we're going to hear from him shortly, but when he spoke to the media, is he didn't really seem to have too many answers of what was behind it.
Yeah, he said there was a meeting planned this afternoon with the Ducati technical staff where he hopes he'll be able to understand the issues, but clearly they didn't understand at the time. They tried to fix it all weekend in Indonesia, never really got anywhere close to a solution. He was in qualifying 1, never looked like he had a prayer of getting out of it, we have to say. Qualified 16th on the grid and only went backwards in the sprint and in the race itself. His form at the moment is like a lie detector test, isn't it? It's going up and down, up and down. So quite frankly, we've got no idea which of those 2 Pecoo Bagnaias is going to show up here this weekend. I think we're going to find out one of 2 things, though, this weekend. We're going to find out whether Pecoo Bagnaia genuinely is back and whether Lombok was the anomaly, or whether the actual stunning performance in Motegi was in fact the anomaly, and we're back to the Pecoo we've seen for much of this season. We'll find that out hopefully this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think wherever he finishes this weekend, I don't think any of us can be surprised.
You predict 1 to 20.
Yeah. And nobody in the paddock can confidently say, not even Gigi Dall'Igna, not Davide Tardozzi, not Bagnaia himself, can confidently say that I think I'll be fighting around this position this weekend. It has just been such a...
Because with Marc Marquez absent, with Marco Bezzecchi with penalties, Pecoo Bagnaia should be viewed by many as the favourite for this weekend, but he's far from it.
No, absolutely. And there's a couple of people up and down pit lane that are going to be closely watching the progress of Michele Pirro, who steps in for Marc Marquez this weekend, because if Bagnaia's performance levels are what they were in Indonesia, then the test rider's got every chance of maybe finishing ahead of him, which really would be a stark result and grab headlines. Let's hear from the man himself then. He said he went home after Mandalika. He didn't speak to the media. Ducati saying that they did that to protect his emotions. He's reset, refocused. How's he feeling ahead of Phillip Island? Let's find out.
It's a good track, always being competitive here. Not the easiest for me, but in the last 3 seasons we were able to finish on the podium. So the objective is to finish on the podium. We will have to understand well the situation with the weather, because it looks that will be quite windy in those days, and hoping to I really hope to find the same feeling I had in Motegi, so I can fight for it. If not, if would be like in Mandalika, will be a tough weekend.
We spoke to Davide after Sunday, and he said a lot of work needs to be done with the engineers to figure out what happened in Mandalika. What can you say what's been going on the last week or so at home with Ducati? What have any solutions have been found?
I will have the meeting in an hour, so I will discover well what we will do. I really just hope to bounce on the bike and feel like in Motegi, because the bike was working. In Mandalika, unluckily, it was just tough because the bike was working in a different way and not in a very good way. So just hoping.
What happened with the crash? We obviously didn't speak to you on Sunday, so we're trying to get the information that we missed. What happened with the crash in the race?
Unluckily this season, when the things are going like in Mandalika or Misano or Silverstone, the bike push a lot. The inertia push a lot. You force to enter in the corner. You need to force more on the steering on the bike, and you just lose it.
All okay after that?
Yeah, no problem.
So Australia then, Marc not here, Maverick not here, Jorge not here. It's quite an opportunity weekend, a unique weekend always, but how do you approach this weekend?
Like I said, if the things will go with Motegi, I can fight for the podiums. If not, it will be tough, and we just need to try to finish.
How early will you know into the weekend? First few laps, or? bit further into it?
Out of the FP1, the first lap. That's it.
So there we go. Bagnaia still without many answers. And I put this question to Davide Tardozzi on Sunday morning, saying whether the package that you guys provided Pecoo was worthy of finishing 30 seconds behind Marco Bezzecchi. And Pecoo has had his issues this year, and the bike might not be doing what he wants. But as a fly tries to attack me, there's no way that the bike that Tardozzi gave him, there we go, get rid of that, the bike that the Ducati provided to him was worthy of finishing there. There was more at play there. Bagnaia, yes, has struggled with feeling, but also mentally, it didn't seem like he was in the right headspace in Indonesia.
Well, it takes me back to, I forget the weekend now, because there have been so many weekends where Pecoo Bagnaia's had his issues, where Davide Tardozzi said himself, Pecoo has got to ride around the problems. Ultimately, the bike wasn't that bad to finish that way down the field, because all the other GP25s were ahead of him. Marc Marquez had a long lap penalty, still finished in the top 6 in that sprint, and he didn't exactly qualify all that well. He was down on the 3rd row of the grid. Clearly, Pecoo Bagnaia, as awesome as he is, and we saw in Japan, when it's all working for him, he is still one of the very best in this or any MotoGP season. But clearly when it's not, he's not in any position to mitigate those problems. It's one extreme or the other for Pecoo Bagnaia. He needs to try and find some sort of happy medium somewhere, because if he doesn't, even with Bezzecchi's double long lap penalty this weekend, he's going to lose 3rd in the championship. Yeah, it's going to be a story that we've been following closely all year, because it has been fascinating. The rise, the fall, the rise, the fall again of the 2-time MotoGP world champion. Let's see what happens this weekend. Despite that, I think we still have to put him in the mix as one of potential contenders if everything clicks. Who else are we looking at? Of course, now victorious last time out, Fermin Aldeguer, the second youngest MotoGP winner ever. He's got great form around this place. He's got the monkey off his back. We always say what a first victory does to a rider. It's a shot in the arm. It's an extra 0.2 of a second. That bit of confidence that they might have been lacking. Would he come into the weekend potentially as favourite for Sunday? Favourite, I'm not sure, but why not? Why can't he fight for victory here this weekend? As you said, his form here is incredible. He won the Moto2 race last year, that incredible last lap battle with Aaron Canet. The only note of caution I'd put next to Aldeguer's record here in Phillip Island is how much of that is Aldeguer and how much of that is the Boscoscuro Moto2, which is just phenomenal around this Phillip Island circuit. Alonso Lopez won here the year before on a Boscoscuro as well. But he's certainly going to be a contender for victory. Alex Marquez, second in the World Championship, surely must feel he's got half a chance, although maybe not the strongest circuit for him. But you can list anybody up and down this field from all 5 manufacturers. Honda have proven they can fight for dry weather podiums now. They'll fancy their chances here this weekend. Fabio Quartararo and the Yamaha must be circling this one and thinking this could be my big opportunity. And Pedro Acosta demonstrated that KTM have got a rider in Pedro Acosta last time out in Indonesia who will fight for every last 1,000th of a second in every last position. He was incredible on Sunday in Indonesia. Of course, Aprilia's hopes, you feel, took a major knock with Bezzecchi's double on that penalty, but Raul Fernandez demonstrated last time out that he's not out of the equation too. So I think you could potentially get into double figures of riders this weekend. They'll be thinking podium potentially, and if I get a following wind, and there's quite a following wind here in Phillip Island, maybe I could win it. Yeah, it was very interesting. Let's speak about one of them, Fabio Quartararo. We spoke to him earlier on that if we get a fully dry weekend, which who knows whether we will, we're not even going to try and make predictions of what the weather will do. He said that there's a real chance that with Yamaha's struggles and woes on a slightly harder option rear tyre throughout the year, whenever they've swapped to the medium for Grand Prix setup, they've gone backwards and they haven't been able to compete. So, like we saw in Mandalika, we could see Quartararo roll the dice and do a Jorge Martin from a couple of years ago. He feels that is a genuine option going into the weekend, and on a circuit that's all about corner speeds, where tyre degradation is really high. You need a good front end.
It feels as though this could be a weekend that falls into everything that Quartararo wants.
Yeah, in terms of weather conditions, it's perhaps the closest thing we've had to Silverstone earlier in the season, although, of course, there are many other things about this weekend that are different to Silverstone. But yeah, Fabio Quartararo, we expect him to qualify well because he generally always does. And in the Grand Prix itself, he ran the software tyre course in Indonesia last time out, as where Jack Miller's attacking us from the balcony just up ahead. If you just putting the camera up there, you can see Jack Miller, who's gracing us with our presence. He's on his way to the press conference, which is coming up very, very shortly. He's always interfering with us during gear up. He's not trying to yank your pants down. He's dumping water at us from the balcony up ahead. But returning to Yamaha, yeah, Fabio Quartararo ran that soft rear tyre in Indonesia last time out, which the team said on Friday had no chance of getting to the end of the Grand Prix, but he proved them wrong in the race itself. Yes, it was only a 7th place in the end, but he demonstrated that he can get a tie to the end of the Grand Prix.
Let's look at Pedro Acosta, another rider that I want to say is a contender this weekend, but there are two red herrings that are jumping out to me. One, the KTM all year has struggled with long, fast corners. Phillip Island is entirely long, fast corners. And tyre life, they've had real struggles with that of late, and this is a circuit where you have to look after that rear tyre going into the last few laps, otherwise you're going to be nowhere. Are those big enough reasons to say that Pedro and KTM could struggle this weekend, or once again could a bit of Acosta magic be able to battle his way through all of that?
I think Acosta magic can battle his way through all of that. Yes, the KTM is a very different bike to previous years where KTM have had a podium here in the past, or at least fought for it in the form of Brad Binder, even if he lost it on the final lap in that incredible battle a couple of years ago. But as I mentioned earlier on, what we saw from Pedro Acosta in Indonesia is whatever the shortcomings of the bike he's on, whatever deficiencies, whatever disadvantages he's battling with in a Grand Prix, he will try and fight to overcome them. Yeah. He had no right in many respects to finish second in that Indonesian Grand Prix. He had, for much of the race, the entire field behind him, backing up behind him, trying to find a way past, and they could not find a way past. You feel, though, for Pedro Acosta, he's going to have to qualify well here this weekend. As much as the KTM is phenomenal in the straights, which is going to be a big advantage here on that start-finish straight when we see some of the highest top speeds of the calendar, Acosta needs to qualify well. If he's back on the 3rd, 4th row this weekend, I don't think he's going to be launching a victory challenge from there. Just finally, Honda, is it out of the question that we could see Honda take their first Grand Prix win in many a year? Because you look at the three contenders, Johan Zarco, of course, first ever MotoGP win here 2 years ago, still is trying to get dialed up with that improved Honda since the summer break. Luca Marini has great form here. Joan Mir is in a great rich vein of form at the moment as well. It feels as though they've got three riders that are coming into this weekend all thinking we could be on the podium here. And they've got one of only two riders in the field here this weekend, Johan Zarco, who has won the Australian Grand Prix before. Only Johan Zarco and Alex Rins, who are on the grid here this weekend, have won the Australian Grand Prix before in MotoGP. It's clear the Honda now works well in all conditions and all types of racetracks. We've seen enough evidence of that in recent times to suggest that they can fight, because Indonesia, in so many respects, was a completely different challenge to Motegi, where Joan Mir qualified on the front row and finished on the podium. And had he perhaps been a little bit more punchy in that battle with Pedro Acosta, Luca Marini could and should have finished second in that Grand Prix. If you look at every rider's pace, equalise it all, Luca Marini, I think, was the rider who will look back on that Indonesian Grand Prix with the most regret, because he could have finished second in that race. So, once again, so much of it comes down to qualifying, because I think the field is going to be so equal this weekend. It's going to be so difficult to make your way through if you qualify poorly. That Honda has clearly demonstrated that they can get a qualifying time at the very least out of it. And if either Joan Mir or Luca Marini on the front two rows of the grid, or both, they've both got a genuine podium shot. With so many contenders, how much of this weekend, tomorrow in particular, when it's been 24, 25 degrees today, the forecast says that's going to drop to 13, 14 degrees, wet, cold, rainy, windy tomorrow. How much of this weekend, when you think you've got an opportunity, is just getting yourself to the grid on Sunday, because it could be tricky tomorrow morning? Yeah, tomorrow afternoon's practice session is going to be fascinating viewing. You might be watching it through the gaps in your fingers if you're waking up in the early hours back in Europe, because it is going to be absolutely fascinating. Wouldn't be able to confidently predict any of those top 10 tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, it's going to be a weekend of survival in many respects, because the elements are going to be throwing so much at the riders. Track temperature's not going to be particularly high, so it's going to be very easy, particularly with some of the right-handers around this circuit, to find yourself in trouble. So get yourself through practice, get yourself somewhere sensible on the grid. We generally expect freight trains here around Phillip Island, so you've got to be in it to win it. That's the old phrase, and this has a bit of a feeling of a sort of Grand National style race about it this weekend. Just get yourself to those final few laps. Anything is possible. As I said, with so many of the big hitters either out or with penalties, every rider in this field will be looking at it thinking, if I can nail the perfect weekend, anything's possible. And could it be this man, Fermin Aldeguer, fresh from victory last time out, on his way up to the press conference? Fermin, there you go, no problem. Guard of honour. Exactly, we can squeeze through. We should have applauded him on his way through. I know, he smiles and gives us a wink as he looks back. I know that from catching up on our way here to Australia with Frankie Carcetti, we speak about how tricky it could be tomorrow morning, that Frankie is already preparing just before he goes out to say to Fermin, fresh from victory, full of energy, full of confidence, of just going,
let's just breathe.
Yeah,
let's just get through the first 10 minutes. Let's not go out there and attack these first 10 minutes as if it's the final 5 laps on Sunday. Let's get ourselves there. It's going to be a fascinating weekend, and we're going to hear from 3 of what we imagine could be some key contenders. Certainly that man right there, Fermin Aldeguer, fresh from becoming the 2nd youngest MotoGP race winner ever. A man still searching, still desperately hoping to become a MotoGP race winner. I'm sure fired up by the fact that his once close friend from Murcia, when they were growing up together at 6 and 7 years of age, has managed to beat him to him, Pedro Acosta. And if these conditions continue, then you'd be a brave man to rule out Thriller Miller. Can he send the home crowd wild on Sunday? There are so many contenders. Phillip Island never disappoints, and it doesn't look like doing so this weekend. Let's head over to the press conference and kick off the Australian Grand Prix.